about how we're consuming that media and the ways in which it's informing their next generation of video strategy. Please welcome Colleen Nuffer.
Thank you, Steve, for the warm welcome, and everyone at Media Post for putting together such a great agenda the next few days. Let's see if my thing works. All right. So it's an honor to be here today in a room full of fellow media professionals. I know we are all facing the same challenges when we're crafting our brand's video mix, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. It's no secret that the video landscape has become highly fragmented. Consumers have more choices in devices and ways to stream content than ever before. Oh, speaking of which, from watches to smartphones and connected TVs, the average American is projected to have over 13 devices connected to the internet in their phone. 13 devices, that's a lot. That means our job as video marketers has becoming increasingly difficult. The ability to identify these moments, to have breakthrough moments with our consumers in a meaningful way at scale is a challenge. And at EA, our mission is to inspire the world to play. And when I say world, I truly mean it. We heard about Steve's passion for video gaming. The amount of people that self-identify as a gamer in the past few years has significantly increased. Everyone from your grandmother playing a casual mobile game, to your next-door neighbor playing competitive Madden or competitive FIFA, to what seems to be every high schooler in the world right now obsessed with the latest Battle Royale craze. There's literally a game for everyone. And for the purposes of today's presentation, I'll be talking about our latest game, Anthem, which just came out last Friday. So let me be the first shameless marketer to stand up here and go tell you to buy my product if you haven't already. Anthem is a multiplayer game that was developed by BioWare. It's about teaming up with your friends as armored superheroes and tackling the futuristic world. It's a lot of fun. I've spent a lot of hours already playing this past weekend. And because it's so inspiring and everyone wants to know what's the backstory behind these games, we partnered with Neil Blomkamp, who's an award-winning director who you guys may know from his action-packed films like District 9 or Asylum. He got a preview of Anthem gameplay a few years ago. He was so inspired by it that he asked if he could create a short film to help us tell us the story behind Anthem. I'm going to focus on that today because I think it's a perfect example of how we're being creative in the way that we're bringing our stories to the world. So here's a cut down of that film.
Long, long ago, we were the slaves of the Urgoth. And eventually, after much strife, we broke free. But there are many dangers. No one can survive out there on their own.
We found her last night. In the jungle.
They said she must have been out there for years.
I always knew this day would come. A line would be crossed. New enemies would be forged. Things would never return to the way before.
Where is she?
The anthem knows you. It knows us all.
Rated T for teen.
So hopefully that was the adrenaline boost everyone needed on a Monday morning, especially after a cocktail hour last night. So with this spot, this trailer, we produced such an emotional response from our players in the gaming community at large. In the first week alone, we dropped it a week before the game came out, we got over 3 million views on YouTube alone. And because consumers go through this emotional and rational decision-making when deciding if they want to buy a game like this, we need to take that same mindset in the way that we approach media. And at EA, we are creative in our core. We have been since our very beginning. We're a company of storytellers, creators, game developers, so really living the art behind crafting our media plan, because that same mentality definitely trickles down to our marketing department. And from a science perspective, we understand the value, as Steve said, of data and the new science of data-driven media and connecting with our audience. But we also know at the same time we can never lose sight of the art that goes with planning. And speaking of data, our favorite topic, EA is often talked a lot about because of the robust data that we have. For us, this is a tool to help us understand who our players are. What are their motivators? What are their behaviors in game? Our CMO, Chris Bruzos, a few years ago, actually 5 years ago now, made the decision to combine our analytics and marketing team. And because of that, the same analysts who are feeding data to our game developers on ways to improve gameplay based on real-time data that we're getting, those same analysts are sharing insights with us on how we can best understand who these people are and how to craft our video strategies. So in terms of the data that we're talking about, it's player motivations. We've done a lot of studies around the why behind people play. Is it for the competitive aspect? Is it because they want to belong and be a part of a team or be immersed in a rich storyline? There's several different reasons, and we make sure to first understand when promoting a game, who is this game made for? What is that attitudinal study showing us? And then from our data in-game, we understand a lot of things about what people are doing in the game. So what games are they playing across our portfolio? Has it been 2 years since they bought a copy of FIFA? If so, that's a reason for us to be marketing to that individual. What platforms are they playing on? How do they feel when they lose or when they win? Those are moments in time for us as marketers to take a step back and really understand who our players are. So to help bring this to life, in the instance of Anthem, I've made it a pretend persona here. We'll call him Dave for the purposes of today's presentation. He's a passionate team player. This is what we know from our attitudinal studies. He really enjoys the team aspect of video games. He's a fan of BioWare, the studio who produced Anthem. We know he'll be a likely fit for this game. And we can tell from our portfolio that he also plays NBA Live. He's a big fan of team sports in general, especially playing on console. And with that, we also know he enjoys comic books. So from a media perspective, this creates a content alignment opportunity for us. And his favorite team is the Warriors, which so happens to be mine too. Go Dubs! And really starting our media planning with understanding who our players are first is our driver for the way that we go about crafting plans and finding those ways that we can be meaningful in our breakthroughs with consumers. So in talking about the art and planning, when we start with the consumer, we can be very selectful in when and why we show up. And when you have an asset like the Blumkamp trailer, which I just showed you, you want to be just as creative in the way that you bring that to market. Because of the way EA is situated in-house, we have our team of programmatic, search, and social experts who are going through cross-channel training right now so they can partner hand in hand with our agency when we're crafting our cross-channel video approach. And that's something that's worked really well for us. It's allowed our plans to be truly integrated across plans and rooted in our understanding of who our players are. So for Anthem in this Blumkamp spot, obviously it's a theatrical spot, so what better place to show it than in the movie theaters when you have that big power of sight, sound, and motion on the big screen. We also knew from Dave that he was a fan of comic books, so aligning with the movies when Captain Marvel is coming out made perfect sense. And another big pillar of the focus on art is finding moments in time where we can reach a more receptive audience. When are they most likely to be engaged and leaned in? With Dave, he's a Warriors fan. So we had a big NBA strategy aligning with live games when people are less likely to fast forward, and ended up debuting the spot in the All-Star game, which had a ton of positive reception. And all of these decisions were intrinsic things that we knew were the right thing to do with this asset, but we had the data points to help back that up. Everyone has seen this slide a million times. Why is it important to start with the consumer? Because of this, because of the fragmentation that we're facing. Consumers have more choices. We have more choices in buying that same inventory. There's 5 different ways that you can buy traditional linear TV now, and with the rise of OTT, It's really hard to get to the same scale of reach that we used to be able to get to 10 years ago by running one spot in American Idol. So our challenge as video marketers has become increasingly difficult on building that scale across the different screens, across the different content providers. And so for someone like Dave, we can make the assumption that he's likely not subscribing to traditional TV anymore, with 1 in 3 households under the age of 35 no longer subscribing to TV. People aren't graduating college, getting an apartment, and signing up for cable TV anymore. We also know that for the first time last year, mobile surpassed TV in terms of time spent. And a large portion of CTV users are no longer subscribing to cable. So one may think, by looking at this, that we would be backing away from TV entirely. That's not what we're doing. We understand that we need to have a truly diversified video approach in order to show up in meaningful ways. What we are doing is taking a second look at our TV investment to make sure it's as most impactful as it can be by applying learnings from our data-driven channels into what we're doing for TV. And at the end of the day, the more options that we have as advertisers and as consumers is making human attention a scarce commodity. We're having a hard time finding ways to reach consumers with our advertising, and at the same time having a hard time finding ways and time for them to actually play our games. Recently, the Netflix CEO made a comment that he thought Fortnite was his biggest competition, even over HBO. That means that the lines between gaming and entertainment are certainly becoming blurred, and there is just this fight for attention and getting people's time. So for us, what this means is taking a step back, remembering that people are not out looking for our ads. Just because we have a new sale or a new game out on market doesn't mean people are scanning their pre-rolls trying to find our ad. So always taking a step back, remembering who the consumer is, and finding ways that we can be meaningful in the way that we break through. And so as the landscape shifts and talking about the different ways that we can buy TV, we first take a look at the scale and targeting options that the different TV options buy us. And we are definitely shifting more into data-driven channels, whether that be addressable or programmatic. But at the same time, we're looking at the learnings that we're getting from true audience-delivered buys to help inform what we're doing for traditional TV. So for instance, if we see on a programmatic buy or an addressable TV buy that's naturally delivered content based on where the viewer is showing higher engagement with certain types of content, that then informs what we're doing from a traditional TV standpoint in real time. We're able to make those programming selections. So bringing it back together with the connection of art and science, while we are shifting more and more into data-driven channels, we're also maximizing the impact of linear, like I said. So for art, this means identifying those meaningful moments, finding times when consumers are truly leaned in and engaged and receptive to what we have to say, and also having a creative, like what I just showed you, helps break through in those ways. And then from a science perspective, obviously we are data first, but we want to make sure we're using our data learnings to apply to channels that maybe aren't as data-driven. So if you remember 3 things from what I said today, these are kind of the 3 big takeaways. From a data standpoint, it's there to help validate our decisions. We've all been in this industry for quite some time and intrinsically know the right thing to do when certain instances come up. We knew that Dave was a fan of the NBA, so running an all-star game was a natural fit for us, but having that data point to help back that up felt great. We also want to make sure that we're optimizing our mix in real time. So taking the learnings that we're getting from our digital and data-driven channels to improve what we're doing from a traditional standpoint. And lastly, and probably most importantly, is continually test, and test some more. The more you test new platforms, new partners, new networks, new content areas, and asset types, the smarter your video mix will come over time. We typically carve out around 10 to 20% of our video budget to do exactly that. So thank you guys for having me here today. At EA, we found tremendous success in looking at both the data of science and also the art that goes with planning. Thank you.
Colleen, hang on, Colleen, we have questions. We have time for questions of Colleen. If anyone throughout the summit, for those of you who have questions, please stand, tell us who you are and who you're with.
We're here. I got it, Steve.
Go ahead.
Tell us who you are, where you work. Hi, Kevin Hayes from American Target Network.
Hi.
Hi. So in your example where you talked about how you utilize the All-Star game to target that user that you talked about, how do you measure then the result of buying into the All-Star game? Is it just awareness? Is it people going to the website? Is it downloads? Is it increase?
For us, it was an awareness play.
Okay.
We've had this vicious cycle of always looking at the lowest hanging fruit. So for instance, looking at someone who bought FIFA 18 to market to FIFA 19. That very DR-focused media isn't putting us in the right places to reach more of that mass audience. When I talk about marketing to the world and reaching people that are harder to find than normal, it's about finding tentpoles like the All-Star game to drive mass awareness and build reach for our brand.
To gain newer potential users, right?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned lean-in moments, and
Yeah.
I'm really interested about how you're defining context. So there's the context of the sort of content affinities, but then there's also the context of what you're learning about what those lean-in moments. And as you're moving across these different media and different media experiences, are there any things that you're finding about the differences in sort of lean-in moments and whether some of these different channels are better and worse? Is linear still the king of lean-in, or are there others that you're seeing that actually are optimizing better when it comes to that kind of experience that you're looking for, that receptivity?
Yeah, I think things like linear in cinema, when someone is sitting down in full attention to the screen and talking about moments like live sports or live award shows, that's still such a unique moment for us as brand marketers. So I would definitely say that's where our priority is. But there's also a rise of a lot of new formats on OTT that are offering a similar type experience. But building those at scale is where we run into issues.
And how are you measuring that? How are you determining whether you're really having that impact and what different impact you're having across those screens?
It's really just taking a look at the placement and again, going back to what we intrinsically know as planners to understand if that's something that we feel like would break through in that moment. We also do a lot of ongoing brand studies and can see where we're seeing the highest brand engagement.
Hi. So you're obviously sitting on a treasure trove of data. On the flip side, the consoles are obviously a very contextual place for you to run video. How easy, or maybe not so easy, is it to port a lot of your data to the consoles and maybe all of the, let's call it the platforms within the consoles to deliver your video?
So while we are a very data-heavy company, one thing we're not good at is sharing it outside of our walls. So I'm sure you guys have heard that from a lot of brands. But we take extra caution, and the reason we have such a big in-house team is to keep that data as close to the vest as possible. So while we do prioritize video on console, we're not using our first-party data to do that.
I saw a question over here. No? Oh, right here. Please tell us who you are, where you work.
I'm Sonia Savati at Click Health. I just wanted to unpack a little bit that statement that you had for this earlier one for like advertising on the All-Star game versus like the data-driven, like the awareness versus the data-driven. Like I struggle a lot with that conversation of like, oh, just pour it all into like this digitally data-driven versus the awareness. How does that conversation go at EA that's such a data-driven company?
Yeah, what we try to do is use our data to maximize reach on the truly addressable channels like programmatic and addressable TV first. We then use TV and things like cinema to build incremental reach on top of that.
Hi, Brad from Spotify. This is a completely self-serving question, and I understand contextually we're at the TV and Video Summit, but I wanted to ask a question about music. It seems like music is such an important part of the overall gaming experience, and just curious to know how you lean into that as a potential marketing vehicle.
Yeah. So for us, music is a huge pillar. There's music with all of our games. They come with a soundtrack, and there's a lot of work that goes into the soundtracks that come with each of our games. So we work with audio partners to bring that to life. Where we've had issue is we are such a visual company, so we rely heavily on video. The bulk of our mix is video. How do we convey a message like the Anthem trailer over audio is where we've had difficulty in running in places like digital audio. So we've prioritized video and display in those platforms.
Could you tell us a little bit about what that Anthem media plan looked like? Beyond, I mean, you told us that the in-theater one was particularly bad, but you tell us what, and just sort of how it sort of broke out and where you were
Yeah.
Who you were targeting and what media and channels you were hitting with
The interesting part is when we first put the plan together, we didn't know we would have such a powerful asset to leverage. So we first built the plan understanding who the consumer was, building out those layers of the plan from national TV to cinema to out of home. How can we drive awareness of this? It's EA's first new IP in over a decade. So we really wanted to make a splash, and we couldn't look at what we've done in the past because it was brand new. It had no brand identity yet. So really looked at high reach channels to bring it to market. And then when we found out about the Anthem, the Blumkamp trailer, we kind of revisited all of our placements to make sure we were finding really smart areas to run that both contextually and with an engaged audience.
So once you got a different creative, it actually flipped the strategy and you started thinking about engagement rather than reach?
It was still reach, but we wanted to make sure we were maximizing engagement in those high impact moments.
What were some of the places that you were putting it where you think you really were maximizing engagement?
Cinema. So we knew that Captain Marvel was going to be coming out right in our window, and that the people that were likely going to be playing Anthem were huge comic book fans, so that was a natural place to run it. Also running in just movies on TV and digital video, finding those kind of longer format streaming content areas to run a spot like this. The full-length spot was 4 minutes, and our creative team first came to us and go, okay, build a mass plan with a 4-minute asset, which I think we all know can be challenging. Not all formats obviously support that. We compromised and landed on a 90-second asset, which we've been able to use in the All-Star game and a few different digital areas.
Colleen will be, oh, here we go.
Hey, I'm Jesse from Forward PMX. Probably a question for a different team in your company, but with the competition for attention that you talked about, the Fortnite versus Netflix, I wonder if, have you guys seen an influx of brands wanting to integrate with your products, co-branded experiences in non-traditional kind of paid spaces?
Yeah, absolutely. I think video game is having its moment right now. Fortnite helped with that. We just came out with a similar battle royale game called Apex Legends, which is gaining a lot of that traction. And there is a lot of attention from other brands on how we can integrate with that. I know Disney and Marvel also have their own interest in Disney Interactive, but those are big conversations that we had from a brand perspective.
I know from we've had EA here, a number of you from EA over recent years, and I know that one of the pushes at EA was using its data more effectively to sell across its portfolio rather than focusing on a campaign-centric approach, title by title. In this case, obviously, you had new IP, so you needed that campaign approach. I'm curious on what was the other piece of this than when it came to marketing to your own customers, this new IP?
Yeah, so with this one, we wanted to go broader than our existing customer base. We felt like if we went broad and got enough buzz, the rest would follow. And when we think about our portfolio, we always do take a step back before the fiscal year starts and look at our video investment as a whole to understand what the bets we want to take are across the portfolio. Because we still do plan beat by beat, campaign by campaign, but it's important to always take that step back and analyze what the big bets you want to take are in the coming year.
Colleen Nuffer, thank you very much. Colleen's going to be with us for a few days so we can talk to her then.